It's a new season of Shiyu Defense, and we're here to find out if this season can be beaten with level 50 agents. Normally, agents can reach level 60, making rewards feel almost too easy to unlock. So instead, we're upping up the ante with this modified rule set. I'll only use agents capped at level 50, which includes their W engines and the team's Bamboo. That means their core skills are limited to rank D, and their active skills are stuck at a base level of 9. To keep things fair and accessible for everyone watching, I'll use no more than one limited W engine per team. Not only that, but I'll also restrict my limited agents Mindscape Cinema to 0. Before we dive into the encounter, I want to show my current roster to show what agents I'll be working with. Without further ado, let's get into the encounter.
Recalibrating.
This boss should be really easy with a disorder composition, but this time around I wanted to deploy Soldier 11, since it was requested by a viewer. And besides, I've been meaning to get the old Oboe squad back together. Anyway, the way the Thracian encounter plays out is he does 2 or 3 moves before going into an enhanced state. It's when he charges his spear and goes electrified. Once electrified, he does a special attack that in the earlier stages are manageable. But if he becomes electrified thrice, he uses attacks that makes him invincible, which you can guess wastes a lot of time. However, I observed that the counter resets once he gets stunned. It's also important to keep in mind that parrying his attacks with a defensive assist makes him jump straight to going into his electrified state, which makes gathering decibels problematic.
Sniper's Creed. One shot, one kill.
One trick you can employ is to count his moves, though there is a bit of luck involved. So you count his moves and on the second or third attack, you defensive parry. He was gonna go into his electrified state anyway, so you don't have to feel bad about using your defensive assist during those specific windows. Despite the agent archetypes, this is more of a dual DPS setup since I built Trigger to deal damage. Since I have observed that Trigger, if equipped with an impact set, won't grant an additional stun within the allotted time, so I might as well use her as a backup damage dealer. It's important to keep in mind while Trigger's damage might not be screenshotable like those clickbait thumbnails littered across YouTube, you need to be aware that Trigger's damage comes in small increments all while being off-field. Add on Asha's ability to buff both agents and you have yourself a pretty good team. And besides, with this setup, Soldier 11 sees more field time and you get to enjoy more of her flame animations and explosive sound design.
Fire's ready.
Though a dual damage dealer setup, it plays the same as the traditional attacker impact support team. I only need to save Soldier 11's ultimate during the stun, while Trigger's ultimate is on demand to rapidly build up the enemy's daze bar. During the stun window, I opted to have Soldier 11 cast 2 chain attacks because her additional ability gives her bonus fire damage during the stun window, and this allows me to keep her fire suppression up. Now regarding the fire suppression timing, you really don't need it if you manage your resources well. But for me, I had to get used to it to minimize the lack of damage without her fire suppression. But if you're curious how I managed the timing, the way I did it was through counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with each press corresponding to 1, 2, 3, and 5, with the 4 signifying the delay between 3 and 5. Initially, I was using an off-key version of patta 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 pon, but counting was far easier. Hope this helps. Moving on, one problem I encountered with this setup overall is it's really weak at clearing mobs. But thankfully, the stages this team was assigned to had a low target count, so it wasn't a problem this time around. Another is I don't have the Brimstone W engine yet, so Soldier 11's damage was a bit lacking. Not only that, but I found that you'll never find a scenario where Soldier 11 will use 8 fire suppression attacks provided by her EX special attack, before you can get to cast another EX special which leads to some wasted power. The Ether Dog is an encounter that's pretty straightforward. I'm not quite sure how it is for level 60 agents, but my experience in this run is doing 3 consecutive defensive assists will break his armor. After that, I employed the same strategy I used for the Thracian, and this becomes a test of your fundamentals as a player more than exploiting any boss gimmicks. However, the one tip I can provide is to use agents that have elemental advantage. At the risk of repeating myself, I only used Soldier 11 because I wanted to give some spotlight to my other agents. That said, I should really consider getting an ice attribute agent that isn't Hugo or Miyabi. Since there is not much about this encounter, I'm gonna take this time to apologize for making a previous claim I made that the astral voice buff gets passed on once a stun is initiated. I finally did some testing and it did work. Granted, I was working under the assumption that it works similarly to Sukaku's buff transfer, but I failed to notice that her skill description explicitly says chain attack, and for that, I apologize. I do believe what I covered during the Thracian regarding this team composition also applies to this encounter, so I'll let your ears take a break from hearing my voice and let this encounter play out.
Its mark. This feels right. Target acquired.
Soldier 11's build is pretty straightforward. However, I wish they will release a disc drive set that can elevate how she dishes out damage. Trigger's build, like I alluded to in the run, is treated like a damage dealer. You would probably see this set more commonly on a Soldier 0 Anvi. This time around, Asha's build doesn't have me stacking up as much attack stat as I can, but instead leaning more towards energy regeneration. This is because I wanted to keep her buffs active at all times to both Soldier 11 and Trigger. Not only that, but having enough energy allows me to quickly swap in Trigger to reactivate a stun. First off, I want to thank everyone who participated in the survey regarding the inclusion of Frontier 6 of Shiyu Defense, and of course to give thanks to Democracy! For the shielded defender, the only real thing you have to watch out for is when it launches a missile salvo that covers a wide area with timed explosives. This would be a precursor to it activating a barrier that prevents your agents from building anomaly other than shock anomaly. Thankfully, the barrier dissipates as soon as it either gets shocked or if you manage to stun it. Although it would be much preferable if you shock it as soon as you see it cast its missile salvo, to prevent it from gaining the barrier in the first place. And if you don't have a shock anomaly ready to go, then you can try staggering it with an agent's ultimate ability. I'm running a pretty standard disorder team with 2 anomaly agents in play, but it's important to keep in mind that in Shiyu Defense, it's not just the boss you have to contend with but the initial mob spawn as well. Don't underestimate the initial wave, for it could easily take 30 seconds or more if you're not careful, which is where Nicole comes in to balance out the composition with her excellent crowd control. As with any disorder team that doesn't have an impact agent, you could get away with doing an ultimate rotation before the boss gets stunned, and hopefully by the time the boss gets stunned, you'll be able to cast another set of ultimates. However, do keep in mind to hold your resources whenever the shielded defender starts to put up his barrier, unless you're sure you're able to interrupt or break it if ever it gets deployed.
Mind and body.
A couple of problems I had to face with this encounter and this team setup is how easily I run out of energy, in which case I suggest running the Gentleman Bamboo. Thankfully, due to the frequent opportunities to parry with a defensive assist, Vivian is able to generate flight feathers without having to expend much energy. I'll let the rest of the encounter play out so you can observe for yourself the other details that I might have missed covering.
Who dares get between me and Lord Satan?
And of course, maybe you'll spot some of my errors which I suggest you point out in the comment section below. I don't claim to be a mechanical god, so I really appreciate it when you guys call me out on my mistakes so I can watch out for them the next time I do my runs. Let's quickly get this out of the way. As soon as they appear, head to your most comfortable corner and let the dodging sequence play out. Once in the corner, they should be grouped together. Next, make sure your camera is facing the wall or corner, because the Palicus you are targeting will eventually teleport behind the other, and due to the limited space, they will end up next to each other. Hopefully by then you would have gathered enough resources to launch a sequence of attacks that leave them either corrupted or staggered. Due to their mass, they can easily be pulled by skills such as Nicole's Orb or Vivian's Ultimate. As you're doing this, both of them should be gathering days, but don't stun them at the same time. Instead, I suggest to stagger their stuns so you can make full use of your chain attack rotation for both bosses. Not only that, but having them stun sequentially instead of simultaneously gives you more time to kill the other Palicus. This is because as time progresses, they eventually use a coordinated attack that wastes an incredible amount of time. Not only that, but once one Palicus dies, the other goes in a Berserk state, which leads to another time-wasting attack. So the idea is to kill the other Palicus as fast as you can to prevent the coordinated attack, and hopefully you can kill the remaining Palicus in quick succession. But if one survives, at least you only have to suffer through one time-wasting attack. I'll let the encounter unfold so you can observe the details I might have missed. Feel free to point out my errors in the comments. I'm not perfect, so I appreciate when you call out my mistakes to help me improve for future runs.
Don't go unanswered. That's you in the next life. Resistance futile. Out of my sight. See your heart reflecting. Time to wrap things up. Press the attack. Who dares get between me and Lord Thracian? Watch it. Enemy Suppression 6 shall pay. Don't touch me. Any compliments from me? In pursuit. Weak spot located. Such a pain. Time to wrap things up.
With another successful clear, it looks like HP inflation has not caught up to us yet, and this season can still be beaten with level 50 agents. Before we dive into the gear section, I want to share the different team compositions my colleagues use for this encounter.
You have my complete
Yanagi's loadout is pretty standard, though I did make the error of equipping Fusion Compiler instead of the Weeping Gemini, since I needed more anomaly proficiency for her polarity disorder, and pen ratio from the Fusion Compiler was rendered less effective since Nicole with her defense shred is on the team. As for Vivian's loadout, I'm still using a set with pretty bad substat rolls. But this is a good thing since this just means her damage can go even higher than what I'm currently used to. I built Nicole for Anomaly because I didn't want her diluting the overall Corruption Anomaly damage dealt by Vivian. This was an important adjustment since Nicole is notorious for building up the Ether Anomaly gauge. While these runs aren't formal guides, they can help you refine your gameplay or spark inspiration for your own approach to Zenless Zone Zero's endgame content. I encourage you to check out my previous runs for ideas and strategies. Until then, I'll see you on the next excursion.